about Shawwal. And of course, the basis of that is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said, "Man sama Ramadan thumma atba'ahu," or kama qala alayhi salatu wassalam. He said that whoever fasts Ramadan and then follows up Ramadan with 6 days from Shawwal, it is as if they have fasted an entire lifetime to it. And the Prophet ﷺ is explaining to us that fasting every year, Ramadan and Shawwal, the 6 days of Shawwal, would be equivalent to having fasted your entire lifetime, because a good deed is by minimum multiplied by 10 by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so a month by 10 is 10 months, 6 days is 60 days, right? So it's 2 months. And so therefore, if you fast 36 days of the year, or approximately 36 days of the year, it is as if you have fasted the entire year in the sight of Allah. Hence, if you do that regularly, it's as if you have fasted a lifetime. And subhanAllah, that doesn't include the Mondays and Thursdays, the Ayyam al-Bid, which the third, if you fast the 13th, 14th, and 15th of every month, which are the days of the full moon, the Prophet ﷺ also said that whoever fasts those days, it is as if they have fasted an entire lifetime, because that covers the month. That doesn't include the days of Arafah and Ashura and the mighty rewards that they cover. So this is a very specific hadith with a very specific injunction. And a few things come up in regards to it. And it's really based on, first and foremost, whether or not the virtue of the 6 days is 6 days after Ramadan, or the virtue of the 6 days is 6 days within Shawwal itself. And these are not like the days of Ashura and Arafah that were taken from being obligatory days of voluntary days of fasting after the legislation of Ramadan. These are 6 days that are directly connected to the month of Ramadan and keeping consistent after Ramadan. And so what are some of the questions that come up? The first question that always comes up is, do I need to make up fasts before the 6 days, or can I fast the 6 days and then make up my fasts? And this is an area of difference of opinion, as are a few issues that are going to be brought up. So according to the Hanbalis, if you have makeup days, you should make up those days first, and then you should fast the 6 days of Shawwal, because the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever fasts Ramadan and then follows it up with 6 days, then it is as if they have fasted the entire year. And so you make the intention, you make up your days, and you try to get your 6 days done. If, especially for women that might have a lot of days to make up, if it goes into the Qa'dah, then Allah will reward you according to your intention to do so. So according to the Hanbalis, you would make up your days first on the basis of completing Ramadan, and then you would fast the 6 days. However, according to the majority of scholars, they say that the 6 days of Shawwal can be made up before the completion of the obligatory fasts, because the Prophet ﷺ mentioned the 6 days of Shawwal restricted to Shawwal, whereas the days of Ramadan can be made up all the way until the next Ramadan, meaning Sha'ban, prior to the next Ramadan. So let me give you some context. If the virtue of the 6 days is limited to a time frame of a month, whereas making up the days of Ramadan, you have the entire year to do so, then you should prioritize the 6 days of Shawwal, not because they're more important, but because they're restricted and you can get the benefit of both. And one of the evidences of that is Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha mentioning that she would make up days of Ramadan in Sha'ban the next year, meaning prior to the next Ramadan. So that is to suggest that she, of course, would have availed herself of the 6 days of Shawwal, of Arafah and Ashura, but she also would make up the day. And so that is the opinion of the majority, that you can make up the 6 days, you can fast the 6 days of Shawwal and then make up the days that you're missing from Ramadan. Now, can you combine the intentions? No, because you cannot combine the intention of an obligatory voluntary deed. As virtuous as the 6 days of Shawwal are, at the end of the day, they're voluntary fasts. So you can't combine the intention of two. However, you can combine the intention of Shawwal fasts with other voluntary fasts. So for example, the Monday and Thursday, or if you want to fast 3 of those 6 days in the middle days of the month, the 13th, 14th, and 15th, or if you want to space out the days of Shawwal in accordance with Mondays and Thursdays, and that way you can double the intention to observe those days while also observing Shawwal, because you can combine voluntary intentions in that regard, nafila intentions in that regard, in the broadest sense possible. So I'll get to the best timeline, but this is just to say that, again, according to the Hanbalis, you would make up your days first, and then you would fast your 6 days. According to the majority of scholars, you are able to fast the 6 days and then make up those days. So what do I just advise people and suggest to people in that regard? Obviously, the opinion of the majority, makes it easier for people in this regard to be able to attain both, and there's strong evidence in that regard. However, if you have the ability, if you only have to make up 2 or 3 days or maybe 4 days, and you feel like you can make up the days of Ramadan, and you can make them up immediately, and then you can do the 6 days of Shawwal, then do so bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. If you feel like it's going to be a burden, because that would remove you from the difference of opinion in that regard. If you feel like it's going to be tough, and you might miss out on the 6 days of Shawwal if you try to make up the days, especially if there are a lot of days, then make the priority, inshallah ta'ala, to fast the 6 days first, and then make up those days afterwards, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, up until Sha'ban of the next year. And of course, the earlier, the better for you, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, depending on the proportion that you have to fast. Now, another question that comes up, is it better to do the 6 days of Shawwal early, meaning as soon as Shawwal starts, or is it better? Scholars like Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah, Abdullah Mubarak rahimahullah ta'ala, and others, they mentioned that it's preferable to fast them as soon as possible. Why? Because the way the hadith is sequenced, and also that you'll be amongst the sabiqun in that regard, the forerunners in that regard. You'll be quick in that regard, and so you can, inshallah ta'ala, do them quickly, and you don't miss out on them. You don't risk missing out, because we know that sometimes we might plan to space them out, but then things happen and we're not able to fast them. And so you will find some of the scholars mentioning that it's preferable to fast them, in sequence, or at least earlier within the month. In that regard, to really say one way or the other. And so you can fast them as quick as possible, inshallah ta'ala, if you want to develop the consistent habit of fasting now that Ramadan is over and your body is adjusted. Then inshallah ta'ala, you can again combine with Mondays and Thursdays. And if you combine, the first Mondays and Thursdays, or whatever Mondays and Thursdays you can, as well as Ayyam al-Bid, the 3 middle days of the month, inshallah ta'ala, then hopefully you're in the safe zone in that regard as well. So again, sooner is better in the sense that, you don't want to miss out and end up, with the last few days, because it has happened to many people, right? Where they make the intention and then they missed a Monday or Thursday here for whatever reason, and then there are 3 days of Shawwal left, and they have to still fast 3 days to be able to partake in that reward. So definitely sooner the better, but combining is also good if you want to make it a habit, Mondays and Thursdays, inshallah ta'ala, and the middle 3 days of the month. Again, these are broad concepts, inshallah ta'ala. These are, ways for us to continue to take advantage of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He's given it to us. The last advice that I'm going to give you in this regard is try to bring about some of the Ramadan ingredients to your Shawwal fasts as well. We all know that fasting in Shawwal is not as easy as it becomes in Ramadan. And there are many reasons that we could explore in that regard. But try to make sure, for example, if you had the habit to read a juz of Quran in every day in Ramadan, or some other amount, then read that amount if you can, inshallah ta'ala, for the days that you're fasting in Shawwal as well. Try to give sadaqah on those days as well. Make dua before iftar on those days. If you can pray some qiyam, inshallah ta'ala, on those days as well. So try to bring some of those Ramadan ingredients, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, to your fasts as well in Shawwal. And I think that covers most of what gets asked, and inshallah ta'ala, whatever else is asked that I didn't cover, I may have forgotten to cover, inshallah, we can talk about it on Thursday during our webinar, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. But in the meantime, please do, inshallah ta'ala, avail yourselves of this wonderful opportunity. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to use these fasts, not just to get closer to Him, but to also, inshallah ta'ala, remember our brothers and sisters in dua. Remember the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that the dua, the supplication of the fasting person until they break their fast is accepted. That is not restricted to Ramadan. And so in Shawwal, right before your fast, remind each other, inshallah, if you have people around you, to make dua for Al-Aqsa, to make dua for Gaza, to make dua for your Uyghur brothers and sisters, to make dua for your brothers and sisters in Afghanistan who are also suffering, brutal attacks, Syria, Yemen, wherever they are. Keep them in your dua, inshallah ta'ala, as you are about to break your fast. And of course, Allah knows when you say fi kulli makan, in every place in the world, when you're making dua for people, Allah knows, and Allah encompasses what you cannot encompass, and Allah remembers and knows what you at times may forget. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to do so, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our deeds, and jazakumullahu khairan.